Hey boyos, welcome back to another edition of the ARPG Corner. Today, we're revisiting our Armageddon Mage build, except this time it's online. A few of you rightfully pointed out on the last build that I was using an offline level 90 character, and full disclosure, that is a quote-unquote hacked / JSON file edited character. I find it much easier to iterate and itemize on a character like that because I don't have to worry about resources and respecking. It makes it much easier to actually do all the iteration, and that way you can apply it to your online character without, running through all of your gold or primordial affinity. With that said, what we're doing is applying the same build principles to our lower level 78 online character, so you guys can see that this is very much viable, no hacking necessary. It's very much a fun build and high expedition level capable. This is the point at which I remind you to hit the subscribe button if you want future build guides and to make sure that you're kept up to date with all future happenings, because you'll actually get them on your subscribers feed. Now, moving on from here, I guess our operative differences between the two characters are that this one is level 78, the other one was 90. We have less overall passive nodes to play with. I'll talk about these in a little more detail rather than just providing you the Wolcen universe build link down below, which should be there, so you can just click it if you want to see all this up in great detail in front of you. The other difference is we're going to talk through the gearing a little bit more before we get into the expedition. Now, the caveat of this run is, well then, thank you very much. Wow, that's really nice. Thanks, game. Alright, so the expeditions map. The problem that we have is I can't get past expedition level 160, not because of the build, because the game keeps crashing. So, it's a little frustrating, but this build, the game doesn't like you so much when you do this much DOT and this many ticks a second. That's the caveat. If you're leveling through your expeditions right now, you may want to do it with our older builds, you may want to do it with the warrior. They tick a lot less frequently, and yeah, you may crash the server a lot less.
Quality on this one is unmatched.
Just actually looking through some of these, none of it is what we need. Speaking of which, let's look at our itemization for this build. Alright, so the first thing that we do is obviously we're a catalyst and a dagger, or a pistol build, whatever you prefer, it doesn't really matter. What we're doing is speccing 3 sacred gems. So we're adding sacred damage to spells directly. Make sure you add it to spells, not attacks. This is really important because you're doing spells. Just spells, no attacks, basically. The reason that we're doing sacred damage is we're trying to maximize it for the EOS tree. As you can see, it maximizes sacred damage here for us, and if we apply sacred damage, it does really cool stuff like instantly kill enemies at 50% of their health pool. Moving on, at the Catalyst, I'm doing transfer time decrease between willpower and rage, willpower regen, and max health. Really, it depends whatever your build needs based on your gearing at this point. You're trying to make sure that as you cast, you want to make sure that it starts regenning as quickly as possible and that the regen is relatively fast as well. So let's say in my case, I probably need a bit more actual willpower regen speed. And that's something that you pick up through gearing or some passive nodes if you want. Now, if this bar was too big and didn't start coming back in time, I'd need more transfer time reduction. So bear that in mind as you spec your gems. As you can see, willpower regen, critical chance score, willpower regen. So I've mostly spec'd for willpower regen. I feel like I get enough transfer time decrease between willpower and rage in my gear. Now, to look at the gear in detail, the 2 main stats you want to prioritize for this build are transfer time decrease between willpower and rage, and cooldown decrease for all skills. Cooldown decrease is absolutely critical because we're spamming skills that are on a cooldown, like the Anomaly and the Tear of Atheliel as well. The quicker you get these up, the more you can spam, the more damage you can do, the more elements you apply, the better life is. Now, some of you were asking last time, you weren't clear on what kind of damage we're primarily doing, and that is sacred. We're primarily doing sacred damage. In this case, I've bumped lightning. I think that's through some like gearing changes that I've done recently, but mostly you'll be doing either sacred or ether or shadow or whatever. So it is primarily going to be occult style damage. Anomaly is a little bit closer to what we normally go for. I don't know where this lightning boost actually came from. I'm thinking it could be from a new item I put in. It's not from there. Ah, there you go. It's from the new Catalyst, right? So the Catalyst is adding fire and lightning damage, and for some reason my build is running with the lightning aspect of it. Whatever, it doesn't really matter. The operative things to look at on the Catalyst are the flat damage increase to spells and the occult ailment chance score. This is super cool because it allows us to afflict people with stasis more often. And cursed as well. two of which are really important because of the way that we make this build, right? So when people are inflicted with stasis, we do 25% more damage to them. We also do the damage again after a 1.5 second delay with a 20% on top. So this is why stasis is critical to a build like this. We're always doing occult damage primarily, and that's the reason that we're doing that. Also with the curse stacks, the reason we want those is occult damage increased by 5% for every curse stack an enemy has, plus 2%, so 7% extra for each curse stack. The way we're applying curse stacks is through Mark of Impurity, and we give them 10 per cast, which gives us a massive damage boost, so that's awesome. Alright, so looking through the gearing a bit more, these are probably one of the worst pieces of my gear right now. The only thing I'm getting off them that's any good is the all res and the movement speed. You definitely want to aim for occult damage if you can, maybe some crit stuff. I definitely need to replace these ASAP. Transfer time decrease and cooldown decrease, damage and all res. This is actually a really good roll for yellow pants, so I'm super thrilled with that. Belt is just flat damage to spells and occult damage, so massive DPS hit there. The attack damage increase, not so great, but hey, you deal with what you get, right? Flat damage increase to spells and occult damage, max health, really good ring. Fire and lightning damage to spells and crit damage, so that one's really, really good for us. Obviously put sockets in all of your rings and puts either willpower regen or transfer reduction depending on what you need. Now, you start getting some interesting modifiers when you start doing untainted runs. One of the important ones for us is the +1 ailment stacks inflicted. So when we're doing our crazy ass DOT AoE stuff, we're inflicting a ton of ailment stacks which are multiplying our damage types, and it's all working synergistically. The more ailments you can actually apply at a given time, the more DPS you're doing. It's just all synergizing with the Mortal Offering, with itself. It's just all like a self-sustaining process, essentially. So definitely something I want to pick up on my rings in the future, assuming the game stops crashing on me. Chest piece, cooldown decrease. Everything else is kind of bad. Like, other than the health and the all res, cooldown decrease is probably the only redeeming thing. So you can see I'm not optimally geared on this character right now. Headpiece, lots of all res, cooldown decrease and transfer time decrease. Really cool. I don't mind that so much. Now, what you have in your chest and your head slots are gonna vary depending on whether you want to spec into Siegebreaker or not, right? So Siegebreaker has this node called Salvatory Anchor and Elevated Gain. What they basically do is, if you have a heavy piece, I only have bruisers, but if you have heavy pieces here, it will multiply their all res scores by 2, allowing you to get massive all res, way higher than what I have. I have a paltry like 4 to 5,000, 3.5 to 5,000, isn't very much at all. So on this build, in order to do more DPS, I've sacrificed a lot of its defensive potential because I haven't found myself dying enough to warrant it. But in the end game, we can talk about certain skills you may want to keep you alive. Obviously, the operative one for me is Branded Burst. The tenet points are really useful. They give you a massive damage reduction, assuming that you can avoid being hit all the time, because they regen on a, a 2.5 second cooldown. I'm not actually sure if cooldown reduction applies to that. It would be kind of cool if it did. You can basically be immortal. So the Siegebreaker, right? So that would be the operative one to aim for if you just want flat resist. You get resist there. You have to swallow a block efficiency there. Doesn't really do much for us. And you get the 20 all res there before we move into the massive all res multipliers. And that's definitely what I will pivot towards as I get higher into the 180s with this build, assuming the game stops crashing and actually allows me to get up there with my online character, which would be really fantastic. Okay, so before I waffle on too much, everything else is much the same as you saw. If you have any questions about this, look at the Wolcen universe link guide or watch the original build link down below. I talk about the skills in fair detail. The only thing we've done for this one is we've switched out our 6th skill slot for Havoc Orb, and the only reason I'm doing this is to add Ren damage. As you can see, I haven't even added all the multipliers yet. It might reduce the minimum range, that'd be good. Ren damage to give us a 6th Immortal Offering ailment stack. So that's 6 of them multiplying our damage. We're absolutely lethal in mobs. Alright, so without further ado, what we're going to do is boot into a expedition at level 160, which is the highest that the game will allow me to do before it crashes out for now. With any luck, we'll roll a good biome. Yeah, awesome. Remains of the Lambach is pretty good. Alright, so, to those of you who didn't see the original build guide, you walk up to a mob and you press 3, 3, 2, 1. So normally Plague Burst is a burst, yes, and then Tear of Atheliel. And then right click for the Solar Fall coup de grace. And then from there, we can add Mark of Impurity as necessary. Mark of Impurity gives them curse stacks. Curse stacks being very useful to our damage in this particular build. Now, one big difference from the last build, which I should have gone over, and you may already notice this, those of you who are a bit more astute, there are green orbs coming out of these guys. The green orbs are due to the Plague Bearer tree, which... Plague Bringer tree, my bad. So you swallow a few useless nodes up here, you know, 10% max health is decent, but all the rest is pretty useless coming up into here, except for that one's really good. Undertaker. Enemies that die in a 20-meter radius have a 10% chance to drop green globes. Picking them up gives you an additional 30% damage as poison damage, right? This is amazing because it can give us a conditional poison stack for Immortal Offering, so a 6th damage stack, as well as the 30% per globe. So if you're dealing with massive mobs and you just massacre all of them and you collect all the globes at once, you can see really cool things happen to your DPS. Like they jump up to 14,000. Watch as I unspool, alright? So that was 14,000. I'm just gonna run away from these guys. Watch what happens when all my Immortal Offerings go away. I haven't applied the Rend one yet. I need to shoot my Havoc Orb a bit more. Alright, so they're gone. Come on. Come on. Come on. Man, these last stages. That's awesome. I mean, I feel like... Okay, good. So, my stock damage is 4,500, and you saw that it went up to 14,000 with all the buffs running. I'm not even sure if it was all the buffs. Maybe we had like one stack left to give. Alright, so we've just got the 4 now. With 4, we've gone up to 9,000. We've effectively doubled our DPS. And if we just run into some more enemies, if the game is gracious enough, let's... One of the cool things about having such an efficient willpower usage character is I'm actually struggling to use Havoc Orb. I don't actually have the energy, the rage necessary to shoot the thing. Hey, there we go. Now if we kill some of these guys, yes, we get our bleed stack. And now we pick up these orbs, absolutely massacre everyone, apply our... Yes, alright, collect them all. 22,000. From 4,000, so conditionally your damage can go absolutely through the roof. It's ridiculous the scaling potential of this build, under the right circumstances, of course. So generally speaking, when you run into a level boss, you want to drag that guy the heck back to a mob. Like, the more mobs there are around, the more enemies are around you, the harder you're going to massacre everything, the more you're going to crash this game until they, you know, hopefully patch it out at some point. It'd be nice to show you guys an Untainted run in the future as well. Those tend to be a lot quicker. We tend to kind of just melt through those guys, and it tends to fill up the spire a lot more quickly. But at least this way we get to take our time and talk about the build as we're going on about things, really. Now, this is a build I plan to keep working on. I'm sure, well, I am sure that there's way more potential in it. My gearing is still vastly suboptimal. It's better than it was offline, but there's a lot more to be done. And I know that it's going to be way more end expedition capable, you know, assuming that the game eventually allows me to get to 187 without crashing out. That would be fantastic. Pick up some stuff, because why not? You may also notice that online, my character actually looks like his thumbnail. Huh? Huh? Pretty good. Yeah? Ah, that fashion game. I'm not usually an orange guy, but I got like an endgame orange rare, you know, dye, so I'm just like, why not try orange for a bit, break things up. I do prefer the retro wave purple myself, but you know, I'll live. It's good to change it up a little bit. As you can see through the cooldowns, we're able to spam these skills fairly frequently. I can make them cool down even more quickly, especially Tear of Athaliel. It's got 2 skill rune modifiers that will allow you to cast it way more frequently. I just find myself unable to cast as frequently as it comes up, because there are other spells to get through, you know. You can see the single target damage busting our chops again. Now the green orbs are your friends. If anybody knows a way to increase your globe collection radius without wasting too many passive nodes, please let me know. I feel like that would be an amazing one. If we can just kind of collect the globes as soon as they drop down, that's going to help this build immensely, right? Because one of the things that we're doing is we do a 25% extra damage to enemies that are at least 6 meters away, and every time we have to run in like this, we lose that damage bonus. So we gain one and we lose another. It's a bit of a pain, and it's something I'm looking to work around in the future. I love this. Look at that. Look at the stacks. It's just like 12k damage. That's 3 times our base DPS without any green orbs. That's just through Mortal Offering. It's so powerful. And I look forward to the meta rebalance. It'd be nice to be able to make builds that don't always hinge on Immortal Offering, because right now I'm not sure there's a way to actually do it, ever since they nerfed Bleeding Edge and Flight of Gavinier, which used to be my favorite skill in the game, now effectively useless.
It's not possible.
At least to the best of my knowledge, or at least compared to how it, you know, used to play. Used to really get that triple Thor fantasy going on. Alright, get that. Get a bit of our Havoc Orb, get a bit of Solar Fall, and then just spam 3-2-1, 3-2-1, 3-2-1, 3-2-1, 3-2-1, and then everything dies. Now, time to die. There we go. That is the cool thing about the EOS skill tree. Once enemies get to 15% of their max HP, they just insta-die. It helps save a lot of time when it comes to champions and bosses, all sorts of things. And we've almost called this guy. If we can just find a few more mobs. Obviously, we're just trying to group as many mobs as we can. The more mobs, the more damage, the more fun, the more death, the more crashing. Really holding my breath if there's not going to be a crash during this. Not going to enjoy that very much. Now, I will stress that the single target damage is currently the Achilles heel again. What's that? What's that? Oh, I thought it was something actually good. So, yes, once we get to the actual level boss, we're going to run into that problem of if there are no mobs around, it's just going to be a bit of a slugfest, and that's just unfortunately something you have to swallow with this build for the time being, unless I perhaps find a way to balance it out a little bit more. Alright, so we're all done. I don't want to kill all these mobs. That's great, we've got a few mobs here. The more mobs between us and the level boss, the better. Now, obviously, you can switch out Havoc Orb. It doesn't directly do any damage for us. It's just doing the bleed stack application for a bit more extra potential DPS. One of the problems you'll also find in this game is that due to the way the netcode currently works, bosses will completely miss you, yet still do damage. So if I die here, I completely apologize. I'm sure it's all entirely preventable. Oh man, the orbs. The green orbs. Look at that. Look at all those green orbs. Look at that. Look at that. They're just that gorgeous DPS, which still doesn't seem to affect this guy whatsoever. Come on, guy. Just die. Just die. Come on. Feel my green orbs. Feel all my green... Oh man, yeah, there goes level boss. This is why, you know, more enemies actually make us stronger rather than weaker. Very, very fun build when you have tons of mobs around you. Like, look at this. They're all CC'd all the time. You're never really in any great danger or risk, and your damage, the damage, always so high. At least by my standards. So, I hope you guys enjoyed that. That is the online, quote-unquote, legitimate version of the build playing on the Asia Pacific server, Sydney. And yeah, let me know what else you guys want to see. In the background, I'm probably going to keep working on this build for a few more days. Unfortunately, I have 2 businesses I run outside of YouTube, so I don't have as much time to play this game as I would usually like. I can't do all the crazy build variants you guys have come to know through the various streamers. I tend to just kind of focus. That being said, fun builds are really where it's at for me. You know, the high expeditions are just a bonus. If they're super fun to play, we're just throwing mobs around like this and nuking them, I think that's really where the joy in ARPGs is. So until the meta changes, this is probably going to be the one that I play with myself. Let me know what you guys want to see in the future. Let me know what interests you, even outside of the Wolcen sphere. Are there other ARPGs you're into? I've been playing Grim Dawn since the early access days. That's one where I have a ton of endgame characters. We can also talk about the upcoming Diablo 4, maybe some old Diablo 3 builds. D2 playing on Path of Diablo these days. Absolutely amazing. They just put in a widescreen mod. Diablo 2 has never looked so modern and so good, so if you ever want to revisit that game, we can do that together. And with that rant out of the way, make sure to hit subscribe if you enjoyed the video. That way you'll see all future build videos and news come up on your feed. If you didn't like the video, which again is understandable, make sure to smash the dislike twice for me. And until next time, have fun.